welcome everybody. I am Sarah Snell Cooke, your host of the Credit Union Connection. I'm here with two lovely ladies today. We have the CUWLA Executive Director and former Credit Union CEO, Linda White. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello. And we have our Director of Strategy and Engagement at CUWLA. Hello, Corlinda Wooden. How you doing?
Doing well. Good to see everyone.
Good to see y'all. So why don't you give a little background on CUWLA?
Well, so CUWLA was the brainchild of Lily New Farmer from Tarrant County's credit union. Back in 2019, 12 of us and her, 13, were tapped on the shoulder to kind of go, let's come together to see if something like this should be. And, not many people know this, but we walked out the first day thinking it was going to be a co-ed organization. And then, over cocktails and dinner, and somebody that's kind of quiet leaned over to me and said, we used to have something like this in our area and it just didn't work. So we literally straw polled to kind of make the determination why it should be women. Should it be man and women, and why should it be women? And we landed on, women by nature are nurturers, and we all have peers that we love dearly, but the conversation sometimes is just ever so slightly different. So we just felt we wanted to have that safe space for women. So then we're originally formed in 2020 as a 501c3, and here we are 5 years later.
Yeah. And now how many members do you all have?
We have 260 members, which is just right. I know. I retired as CEO and said, we knew in 2021 that we were going to need an executive director as part of our growth strategy. And we're like, what does that look like? Who could we get? And I raised my hand and I said, the universe does not know I'm retiring next year. And I'm happy to step in and do it for a little bit and see what that looks like. I've walked in their shoes literally, and I can do that. And 260 members later, I've been retired for almost 3 years, and here I am.
Still going at it. And so, Corlinda, you recently joined the organization. Why was this interesting to you? What about the opportunity appealed?
I have learned about CUWLA from the fold and always thought, gosh, I am not a CEO and I'm not at a smaller credit union, but I would love to join these ladies. I just think they're a powerhouse group of women, and the impact they have is outstanding. I mean, the ripple effect, if you think about supporting that female leader and the impact that she has on her employees, her community, her membership, is just amazing. And I also love Linda so much. So I had the opportunity. Yeah, I worked with her when I was the executive director for Healthcare Credit Union Association, and that's where we first met. And it was just, when she reached out and said, hey, we have an opportunity and we'd love to see if you're interested, I said, absolutely, yes. So.
Excellent. That's excellent. So what makes CUWLA different? Obviously, we've got 51% of credit unions headed by women. So I think it makes sense. What makes CUWLA different, though? What are you offering that others aren't?
I'll take that. Want me to take that?
Yeah.
Back to that safe space. You'll probably hear us say that like repeatedly, because that was really the biggest thing we hang our hats on, is that safe space. And I will give an example from a conversation in another portal that was presented. It was like a co-ed group. And the question was posed from a woman of a small credit union, and 3 employees, and she was asking about a raise for her staff and her board and whatnot. And the response came from a male counterpart, and the response was, why are you doing that? Why, that's your job, the board. And it was like, she's got 3 people, and that's really not what she was looking for. And then fast forward a few years later, once CUWLA was formed, and we had a similar question come from kind of fairly larger credit union. I mean, it was under 100 million, but not 3 or 4 million, and was posing that same kind of question. And the responses this time, and again, it was a larger credit union who at this time you would think would put it in their budget and move forward that way. The response that she got was, oh, I used to do it that way, and here's how I handle it. I know what you're going through. It was never you should have or why don't you. So I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons our members come together. And Corlinda, being new to the fold and seeing it, she's like, the communication and what they share is just, it's priceless. It really is. And just to have that safe space, and someone who like seriously, literally has the same makeup, not this kind of makeup, but to know what you're going through.
Yeah. And I would add too, I mean, like Linda said, so Basecamp is the engagement platform that we use at CUWLA, and every single day somebody is posting and like 5 or 6 people are responding back. I mean, when we say the engagement is high, I've never seen it this high at any other organization that I've supported. And so it just goes back to that safe space and feeling like you have a resource available of this community of women who want you to succeed, and they're there to support you. And it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, definitely showing the credit unions collaborative uh, movement for sure. And so, what are some of the offerings that you all have? Corlinda, do you talk about those a little bit?
Yeah, so Basecamp is that one of just having that platform and things get posted left and right on there. And then there's also we call meet and greets. So it's very casual. I think, Linda created this concept and I love it because there's no agenda. You're just showing up, you're logging in once a month and just, sometimes it's event session, sometimes it's a support session, sometimes it's an education session, but no matter what, the members are the ones feeding the agenda of just what's going on. And so that happens on a monthly basis. And then we also have quarterly power hours. So that's where if there's like, when we look at Basecamp and we look at all the communication, what is the theme? What's bubbling up to the top where we can bring in some outside experts to help provide an education session? Or in some cases, like potential partnerships with different vendors that you can look at and explore. And
Mm,
Linda does a good job of asking those tough questions of the vendors so that the CEOs don't have to do that. So
nice.
it's wonderful. And then I would say the other really big benefit is CULA coaching. That's something where you can tap into executive coaches at no additional cost outside of your CULA membership. And you can meet with these coaches, every 2 to 4 weeks, depending on whatever cadence, matches for your lifestyle. But these coaches are helping these female CEOs in ways that they're not getting, and typically would cost tens of thousands of dollars outside of that. And again, this is just like no cost to your annual membership fee, which I think is also pretty sweet.
Yeah, yeah, nice deal for sure.
Yeah.
So, Linda, earlier this year, you all expanded from, you had a ceiling of $300 million in assets for your credit union memberships, and now it's up to 500 million in assets. Now, I think we could guess why that's going up, but tell us a little bit about why you decided to expand.
Yeah, well, I guess let's go back to why it was 300. Because when we started back in 2019 at the drawing board, we had the conversation, what is it based on number of members? Is it based on number of assets? And we thought, 300 million was where we landed just because at that time it's like over 500, they probably have more staff internally, they have more resources to network, and they've got a broader reach. So when we saw twofold, there was a number of reasons that we made the decision. One was we had members, not many, that were getting ready to reach that 300. Well, that kind of stinks. That was a nice word. Like people that it would be something else. It kind of stinks for them when they are in the fold, and now not only are they looking for help and resources, and everybody, it's a share, it's a give and take. And then we looked at it and we were getting people pinging us and saying, I'm 350 million, but I only have like 11,000 members. And maybe we have members that are less than 300 million that have more members. So we
Right.
went back and had the conversation, because annually we review our bylaws and our structure and our governance. And we said, we can't really go to the membership size, because we do either or. There's just a lot of things that go wrong with that. Then we looked at the database to kind of go between 300 and 500 million. It's less than 100 additional credit unions that
Hmm.
were eligible for membership. So that is the long and short as to why we went ahead and went up to 500 million.
Yeah, it's certainly, your assets aren't going as far as they used to these days, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, when I started in credit unions, the average size of a credit union was like 120 million, and I'm sure it's probably triple that at least by
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Exactly.
Uh, yeah. So, what have been the results? What are some of the outcomes that you all have seen? Corlinda, I'll start with you, from the group.
Yeah, it's amazing. Again, I talked about the impact of what I see on the communication of Basecamp, but what I hear when we have different meetings is also equally inspiring. Like literally last week, we had a meeting actually, it was earlier this week. Time flies when you're having fun. But there was a committee meeting, and one of the members shared that, even though the fee to be the annual fee is really reasonable, it's either 495 or less, even all the way down to zero, depending on your asset size. So really reasonable. But she said if her board didn't approve of her to be able to pay for that from her credit union budget, she would pay for it out of pocket because she believes in the value that CUWLA provides her so much. And I just loved that. And then there's another, I'm going to actually just read, it's the one time I'm going to go scripted here for a second, but I just love this quote so much that she sent to Linda just like a month ago. And she said, CUWLA has been my support hub, not just professionally, but personally. And I honestly believe small credit unions are still in operation today because of CUWLA's support. As a female CEO, this is by far the most valuable partnership I have. I still get goosebumps
I
reading that.
just got goosebumps.
Right? Like, it's just like how cool to be a part of a community that you feel that way. I mean, I just love it so much. And Linda, I'll turn it to you if you have anything else to add.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, when you hear that, yes, sometimes I'll read quotes from members and I'll get emotional. And Lily Newform always says, let's see if Linda can get through an interview without crying. And I'm getting really good at not doing that. But because when I say I've walked in their shoes, I have. I remember what it was like to be a CEO of a $3 million credit union. I know what it's like to grow a credit union up to 100 million. And we have members in all facets of their journeys. And how do we help them? And ever so often we hear those quotes all the time. Like, if it wasn't for this group, I'd lose my mind. And there's, without like sharing their safe space, there will be a post occasionally that this kind of says, talk me off the cliff. And how do you can see the big hug coming from the members. And one of the things, Corlinda and I rarely will reply to a post from a member because we want them to be able to share organically.
Yeah, I'm not a hugger, so just keep that in mind.
Okay, you know what? When I see you next, I'm gonna hug you.
I get that threat a lot. So what's your vision for the future, Linda?
So, and we've talked about how we grew from 300 to 500. Don't anybody get any ideas. We're not going to go over 500 for CEOs just because we really feel then the conversation does differ. And there's a group for much larger credit unions. We are looking at how do we help the next generation? How do we help, if we're about sustainability of small credit unions that are primarily run by women, how do we help them to be stronger themselves? So is there a number two in a credit union of 500 million that might need something like CUWLA? And quite frankly, we do get asked that. So we're looking at, is there something we can do like that? We want to make sure that we're a differentiator to the Global Women's Leadership Network. Sarah, I've been with them since like the first sister society.
Right. Yes.
So we want to make sure we have that differentiator, but is there something we can help with that next layer in credit unions up to 500 million? So stay tuned. That's
cool.
Could be right around the corner. Yeah.
Very cool. So how can anyone in the credit union industry support CUWLA? Can it be men? Can it be, larger credit unions? How can anybody support CUWLA?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you think about CUWLA, we've just talked about there's 260 members today, but there's over 1,900 eligible female CEOs when we talk about that 500 million and under in assets. And so it's like, help us spread the word, help us create and grow this community even stronger. And then, Linda, you can speak to some of the ways that we have other supporters outside of the membership itself.
Yeah, we do. Something we recently did is we added, people say, how do I just donate or help support? Because we do have our CUWLA conference that we do limit the number of sponsors there because we want it to be, it's about members and they're sharing, and we're not talking about ALM and that's not the kind of things that we talk about at the conference. So we did add a link on the website. If people just want to straight up make a donation, they can do that. And it's one of those, they can voluntarily pay the processing fee or not. We have programs that we look for underwriting for. So this year, with the help of Schools First out in California, thank you, Bill Cheney, they have underwritten to support our coaching program. because we do contract out somebody to facilitate and oversee that program, and that there's a licensing to either do disc or Clifton Strengths, which is what they're doing this year. So underwriting some of those programs, because we are a 501c3, and right now, you know, we're being paid. Like like I said, I'm a volunteer plus / employee contract worker because it's my give back. I'm a founder. But as we grow, what does that look like for sustainability? So really it's about supporting a 501c3 that is supporting currently like 260 members, but more, because we know all credit unions out there know that without small credit unions, we wouldn't have an industry that we're looking at today. Right.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know many large credit unions that are amazing, but the stories that we're hearing from the communities of the small credit unions, there's a need. So to help support that effort.
Yeah, it's almost as if it's a group for small credit unions that happen to be led by women. I mean, it just, the way it works out, the math works out within credit unions for sure. And I also think too, women just communicate differently.
Yeah,
than
exactly.
men, for sure.
Yeah.
And not better or worse, just different. Then okay, we'll close it out. Linda, you want to provide us with your final thoughts, what you want to leave our credit union executive audience with?
Yes, we want credit unions to be here forever, and we know that women need a hand up, not a hand out. And as again, you know, small credit union CEOs that are women, most of you have grown up in your credit unions. In order to be sustainable for the future, it's about growing with the credit union and the needs for the future. And so we're here for you. Give it a try.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, ladies. I appreciate it.